Can't
Hello,
see Tony.
gentlemen. Dom's
Oh.
here too. What's up, fellas?
Dom was in traffic and beat you here.
Dude, I know. My computer's a POS, so I can't help it.
We'll just pretend like you didn't make fun of me for being muted for 10 seconds the first 2 weeks.
10 seconds. You were muted for like a good solid minute. Dom, I had the fuck up tonight, so I was the one late. Dom's muted now.
Oh, now he's muted. Oh, no.
Dominic?
It doesn't say that he's muted.
Dominic Salvo? Mr. Lawson.
I want Dom to show up, and I'll realize that I'm the only one that's not in a basement.
Listen, Tony, the best thing about your video is going to be episode by episode how much better the basement gets. I mean, you have this week. It is step by step.
we cleaned up a little bit. We moved the Frankie's next bed over, so now it doesn't look like I've got like running a shelter down here or anything. So
I love it, man.
Yeah, it was funny. I'm like going, am I the only one that's not in a basement? Let's let Dom pop up. Please let him be in a basement. Is he in a basement?
I don't think he is.
He blurs his background, so you don't know.
Yeah, he blurs the background. He blurs. He's not on right now, but he blurs a fantastic Patrick Kane jersey for the Blackhawks. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So, but
well, I thought that he might had like space. Be space on the back of it, maybe the backdrop of these things that I would use. So
Chris is like this, you hear him talk about he lives on this campground. That's where he's at right now. I literally asked him, does he not look like he's sitting at Alex's kitchen?
I thought he was at Alex's house. I legit thought that I was like, I know that corner. That's Alex. That's the pool out there, and that's where Alex lives. There's probably a giant cat.
The street. I'm like, if you're in town and didn't tell me, bro, that's
on my lap, a giant cat. That's right.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I am not at Alex's house. Alex has all the modern conveniences that you require as a elderly gentleman. At this camp, I have a toilet that goes into a pipe that goes into what we call as a blue boy that requires to be emptied. And so no big jobs in the trailer. This is not like Alex's house.
Okay. No. Dom, are you there? He's on. Hey, Lawson wants to know, are you in a basement?
I'm not in a basement. No, we don't have basements in Texas, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
So I'm in my office. Yeah, I'm in my office here. Just got back from Arlington. It was a fun time. We left right before the first pitch, and my dad is very drunk. He's like, "Can I be on the podcast?" I was like, "No, absolutely not." I was like, "Stay."
Please let him in.
He's out back with the dogs, and he's not a good dog sitter either. Because this morning, whenever he was out back with the dogs, I was like, and I had to get on a work call. I was like, "Can you just make sure and not let them get in the pool? I'm going to be on a call for 15 minutes, and then I'll come back." I was like, "Yeah, no problem. I got them." I come out, they're soaked. I'm like, "What happened?" He's like, "Well, they got in the pool. I don't know. I looked away.
I don't know what happened."
I'm like, "Come on, man. You had one job." He's like, "Well, what do you want me to do?"
You play defense on two puppies. You can't play defense on two.
No, not two of them.
They owned him. So
they have the mentality of like a 2-year-old, and they're much faster. I mean, there's no way to win that game.
Like marsupial.
They're fast. Frankenstein that scared me.
Lightning quick.
They're fast.
Well, they can catch too. You guys saw last week
the
did. Videos I sent. I taught them snap counts, Chris. They know colors. They know on 2. They know on first sound, and they literally all throw fade routes, and they'll run and literally catch them. It's unbelievable. If I could have trained,
I got to see the video. I love it.
I'll send it to you.
I love this on 2, and they run a fade route.
If I could have trained Steve Fristow to do that, I would have had such better stats. Unfortunately.
If only my 4 wideouts depended on me for food and shelter, we would have won the championship forever.
I would have killed it. Yeah, killed it. Believe me. They don't depend. I'm the help. That's all I am to them. I'm a resource. They don't give a shit about me.
They run the house.
Absolutely.
It's always funny when you think about the semi-pro. I mean, we're doing this for semi-pro principles and other stuff. But, I always tell people, it's like in semi-pro, I mean, I've met the fastest human beings in nature. I mean, Carlos Perry, when he was 23, I bet could probably have ran a 4.1. I'm serious. He couldn't catch a cold.
Yeah.
If he had to go over his left shoulder in the early days, he wasn't going to catch it. Steve Fristow, same thing. I mean, and then you get these big linemen that could like bench press the Mauler, but the Mauler he couldn't go right. He could not go right. And so it's just like that's what semi-pro is, man.
So Dave Mall, now he was on Eliminate. I think we.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah. Yes.
And Jackson, the Ben Jackson episode of Cheaters is.
We had Eliminate, Dom, and Cheaters.
Please God, I'm so glad my dad is not in here right now.
German pizza commercial.
Ben Jackson, Dom. Ben Jackson played the first year of the Outlaws. Was actually not horrible, but I can't remember who it was. But all I know is he got beat deep against the Mid-State Steel, and on the way home, I think somebody literally was like, "I'm gonna kill Ben Jackson." Like not like I'm gonna kill him. Was like calm as day. I was like, "I'm gonna kill him," and I can't remember who it was. I think I know a name.
I'm gonna tell you.
I know who it was.
We knew who it was, but I don't know if he was gonna really kill him. But I do know. Brent and I watched Robert, and I'm gonna say Robert C.
Yeah.
Robert J. Robert C.
Jackson for some stuff. He's mad at it. He opens up his ashtray in his car. He pulls out a wad of cash, hands it to a 7-year-old, and says, "That's my bail money because I'm gonna beat this motherfucker's ass." And I was like, and he did. Robert came out.
He needed a receipt.
Oh, that's right.
That's it. You had to get your receipt. That was he wasn't trying to fight him all the way to the ground, knock him out. Yeah. But
I do remember that now.
Suspected him, and Robert needed his receipt for that, and that was one hard ass. I mean, the only thing missing was the baby powder, man. One hard ass slap across the face
man.
at our only practice we ever had at Hobbs Park. That was
boy.
It was.
I almost caught one of those, and Brent saved my life. Jamie Ford was going to kill me. You remember that?
Yeah. 2 years later, you guys are best friends. Yeah.
Where were we? I don't remember where that game was, but I just remember this dude was coming at me, and it was like I remember literally thinking, "Oh boy, this is it. I'm gonna get knocked out." And
I saved your life. 2 years later, you and Jamie are hooking up for like 12 touchdowns a year, and he still doesn't like me.
Out of nowhere, Brent just comes flying in. I'm like, "Oh my god, that guy just saved my life." I was not at that game. I remember hearing horror stories about that. I remember I was at my sister's wedding, and I called Dan after, and Dan was like, "You can never miss another game ever." And I was like, "What the hell? Like, what happened?" Like, I'm sorry I was gone, but yeah, I remember hearing about that. That was against Lafayette, wasn't it?
Was that it was against Lafayette. It was.
Yeah, because they had that Purdue quarterback.
Dave Robertson was our center. Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I mean, Dave, he okay. I mean, he did all right.
Guard. I think
Dave was a really good guard. Yeah, he's a very successful football coach in Illinois now. Yeah. He's a defensive coordinator.
Coach, and they go every year. I think he got a little too big to play center, but Dave was a legitimate good guard.
Yes.
The problem was, Chris, if you remember, is that our two quarterbacks outside of Dom, who was, I think, maybe third string, I don't know.
But I remember why Jamie was mad at me at that game because I wasn't playing.
They had small hands and it was raining. That was I think even Chris, we talked about that, right?
Yeah, that's right.
We didn't have trouble in the rain back then.
And listen, the same. What I love is that Kenny Pickett goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers and he's got small hands. They say, "Put some gloves on it," and it'll work out. That's what we did in Effingham. After Dan kept dropping, I was like, "You got to put gloves on, man, because this ain't gonna work." But yeah, it was crazy. Man, those were tough times. I mean, so like my first 10 years in semi-pro, I mean, you had to beg somebody to be a quarterback.
Really?
Well, because I mean, ultimately that ball leaves the center and it goes to you, and you have to give it to somebody else, and that presumes that person wants it, and that's so then you ultimately are the person that's going to take it to the ground. And so I worked so hard, and I used to make quarterbacks every year. Beardo was amazing, and he was from Oregon. He was a little surfer boy, and then our boy from Western Michigan, Jake Duro.
Yep.
He was solid, and then some of the best, like Danny Womack. Danny Womack, 5'6", size 13 feet, and he could stop on a dime and throw a ball 60 yards. And it was just like
Bruce Womack, man.
Hey,
Bruce could do everything.
Do you know?
Bruce was the least talented of the, but he was the most competent and
hardest working.
Yeah,
hardest working by far.
Hey, do you remember? I got a name for you. Remember this guy? This guy showed up year one of the Outlaws too, and I thought he was going to be a player forever. I don't remember his last name. I think Romeo Robertson. You remember him? Romeo could ball.
He could ball. He made it 2 games for us, and I was like, I hope he doesn't disappear. He did leave, but Romeo was tight. He was solid. I'll tell you about another dude, Dante Etris. I think he played for Lanphier.
I think he played for Lanphier, yeah.
And he was tall. He looked like he was a Marcus Allen looking dude. I mean, he was fantastic. Oh my God. And I got to go back to say something about Carlos Perry, so Los don't get mad at me. Los did eventually catch, but when he started, LaShawn and Lewis Austin were guys that played for me back in the 90s with the Bucks, and God rest LaShawn. He's passed away. His brother Lewis is still around, but some of the fastest dudes and big dudes. LaShawn loved to cheap shot everybody. He loved it, and he was good at it. And Lewis,
it's an art.
He didn't want to get hit. I mean, so it was like it was just so funky that they came from the same family. But that's the thing I love about semi-pro football, is that you get these characters that that you just would never believe that existed. So and it's wonderful to me.
What I want to know about is, you left the quarterback out there. I'd really like to hear about Tommy Akers, because I've seen a little bit of footage.
Heartbreak.
And I
Tommy
heard the
Akers.
nickname, but yeah, how did you develop that one as well?
Yes, I had guaranteed a Robert Burns, the State Journal Register, that we're going to have an arena football game, and the first team, Litchfield at the time, I was trying to bring him up and give him a game. Marcus Cox at that time played for Litchfield, but Kenny couldn't come up with the players that 2 weeks later he did. But so we got Wendell Covert to bring in the mid-state Steel, and I had no quarterback. I mean, everybody that Dan was.
Who did they have? You remember who they had?
They had Wendell Covert.
No, they had Kenton Carr.
They had
really?
Kenton Carr also, but Kenton Carr didn't show up till like halftime.
Yeah,
right.
He was like fourth quarter. Covert did play quarterback.
Yeah.
The former quarterback of the Arena's Cleveland Rock. Things escalated quickly at halftime. Mike Daly had about 8 sacks in the first half.
Yeah.
After halftime, it changed.
Soccer world, baby. Carpet on concrete. I mean, oh my God. But so Tommy had the basics. He knew it. He did look pretty. He wasn't very effective, but he had, and well, I don't want to get into it, like Tony Schiffman was the backup quarterback for us.
We've heard,
and I just had to see him take his drop like 3 times. I was like, nope, it's not gonna work.
I was because I remember the only person I'd ever seen take a true drop at that time. I was watching a lot of Rex Grossman. And so I was like,
so you're doing the hop?
Yeah, I was like, that's how you do it. That's how you take a drop, right? And Chris was like, no, don't do that. And I was like, but isn't that what you do? And he was like, no. And then I just remember thanking the Lord above when Dan showed up. And I was like, I can play fullback too. And he was like, done. You're a fullback now.
Yeah, and you did good. You did good. I mean, I was surprised that you had not played that position before. You're a little bow-legged when you run, but I'm just gonna.
You're never gonna let me forget.
Run,
He's never gonna let me forget about how I ran that Gator Bears game.
That impression.
It was a lineman run, man. You kept your wide stance. I do remember that a little bit.
Hey man, hey, look, I closed that game out.
There it is.
It was seven nothing.
It was
7-0 or 7-6 in the fourth quarter, and we had like 2 minutes left on the clock, and Chris looked around and goes, "Go play tailback," and I was like, "Fucking me?"
And he was
like, "Yes," and he gave me 3 straight carries, and I got 12 yards and a first down, and that was it.
There we go.
They closed out that Jacksonville game too, because at 56-0, it was still in doubt.
Hey,
I thought it was close to 70.
It was the final was. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Tony got the second. I don't know how we scored after Tony. Somebody scored after Tony.
Romeo scored one, and then Chris is about to tell the story of Carlos Battle scoring the final touchdown, because it's a fantastic story.
George took one back too. Didn't George take an intercept, a fumble, or something?
I don't know. I can't. Pete Smizer.
The Heat Smizer.
We had signed Pete Smizer like the day before, and we're up so big. I remember Chris sent him in the locker room at halftime to get dressed, and he came out and played the second half and scored a fumble recovery touchdown.
He did.
Needed somebody to buy him a new pack of smokes.
And his son's playing for Monmouth College. I saw videotaped as they came through at the homecoming game, and he's like, "That's my son. My son's right there."
One of us still has the Jacksonville box score.
Blocks the sun.
We're gonna check this out.
While you're looking that up, Pete hit a guy in 06 with the Stallions. We ran out of the I form, the midget I. Remember I told you guys about?
That's right.
We ran a play on the midget eye, and Pete hit a guy from Tazewell, and I literally saw this guy's soul leave his body. He hit him so hard.
Pete
just smacked him.
Pete was a freaking really good football player.
Yeah,
like
he was.
You put him anywhere.
He
played 100% right. Tony.
He could play center, he could play tight end. If you needed him, he'd probably play quarterback. I mean, he was just one of them cats that was always playing backyard. And the thing I think about when we're talking now is that, I think about the movie Sandlot.
Mm-hmm.
And, that last game where they're playing in the movie Sandlot, and they've got to pickle the beast and all this other stuff. And it's like, then everybody leaves.
Yeah. They disappear. Yeah.
Everybody disappears. And it's like, I didn't know in 2013 that up in Peoria we're playing Quincy for the championship. I didn't think that was going to be my last game.
Yeah.
I mean, it just disappears. It just disappears. And you don't realize, how special and cool and how wonderful it was to be with a gang of like-minded folks that just love to play. This is a sport that was stolen from all of us. Mm-hmm. We're all high school or college football players that then didn't have what ailed us fulfilled. And God bless for semi-pro football for us to have that to come back.
Well, it was so much. It was just Dan and I were talking about this the other day, Chris, and it was so much more. Like those years were so much more than just playing football for us. Like it was. Yeah. I mean, we were truly and I know Brent can attest to this. Truly a family. Like I remember we came to Alex's house for many a New Year's Eves. We'd come to your house to watch Super Bowls. We'd do everything together, and that was like, it was not uncommon to see. If there was one of us out, there were 5 of us out, and you always saw us around together, and that was the best part about it. We were all the illegitimate children you never wanted to have to be responsible for when we were younger.
All of your parents were disappointed in all of you.
But it was true. Just so much. It was just like those are. I told these guys, I think last week or the week before. I mean, I look on my years playing semi-pro football more fondly than I do college football years.
Yeah.
I made far more memories, have far more friends from playing semi-pro football than I did 4 years of college football.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just. Maybe I was just a sullen prick in college, or I just.
But you're a coach now, Tony, and so if some of your players did, like I played rugby and it was a club sport. And the reason I played rugby is because I didn't have the discipline to stay dedicated to a college football team when I wasn't going to play and follow all the rules.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my preview, like my crystal ball into what semi-pro was like. If your players acted like we act, we were grown men. Get me? You want to bring these guys up, and even as grown men, some of them, Chris can attest, we turned the corner for a lot of them. But the stories are there because nobody was going to make you get in trouble for making the stories.
No, that's true. That's true.
That's so true. I mean,
that's right.
That's what I stood. You came in with a bunch of guys you knew. Dom, you've got lifelong friends, and you were from here, went away, came back, and became lifelong friends with people.
It's interesting though, man, because I'm tighter with a lot of you guys than I am with those guys. I mean, I remember seeing. This is a true story, and it's probably going to pain some of the guys on the Seminoles and Stallions to hear me say this, but like when we went in 07 and played, and I remember like because you'd see the posts, like you guys really had a brotherhood. Like that was something that you always saw, and I experienced that when I played there. I mean, we would, like Tony talked about a couple weeks ago, we'd be out all the time. We'd be playing video games, we'd be at the bars, we'd be at Family Video or Antonio's, wherever we were there, or Dan's parents' house, right?
Right.
And you think back on that, and I remember the 07 season was miserable. We've talked about that, and you guys were playing in the 8FL still, and I just it was like, man, I miss that, right? And from the outside looking in, you always respected the fact that you were playing against a team that really you genuinely cared about each other, and you saw that brotherhood, and those guys, you guys all stuck together. And I mean, even myself, like Brent and I played together a couple times and against each other more than we care to admit, and hated each other and loved each other, all those things. And like, I mean, I would, take a bullet for him. I'd take a bullet for Tony. Chris, we played against you guys, and you were the fiercest coach I ever played against, man. And it was always the toughest thing to ever line up against you guys because we knew we were going to get your best, but you always respected the fact that you were playing against a bunch of dudes that really were out there to win for each other. And that was not common. And that's something all three of you should be really proud of because you didn't see that a lot.
I'm telling you, in 1996, the guy that's our guest on this show made it that way. I mean, I'm not kidding you. I would never play 20 years of semi-pro football if immediately upon playing for the Bucks, we didn't all feel that way. I mean, Chris, I watched guys who didn't have a place to stay. Chris would find one. I watched guys who didn't have a job. We could find something. And he was the first guy that had a place we could all go. I mean, in 94, I was tending bar and driving a truck that had been totaled out twice. But we had a place we'd go. I mean, Chris
had long hair, like a 1990 hair band. And you
beautiful. This was the era of Fabio, brother. All right.
I'm complimenting him right now.
It was, but Chris did. I mean, it was going to be family, and that lasted 20 years. Yeah, it really did.
My question, Chris, and this is something again, kind of as life, as I've gone through life and matured, obviously these questions come up, but I don't think I've never heard stories of, obviously, you're from Hamilton, played football in high school, played football at Monmouth College. I never heard stories of why you started semi-pro up in Springfield in Central Illinois. What's the backstory behind all of that, and how did that come about? Because obviously you're in the Semi-Pro Football Hall of Fame. You're in, you've spent 25, 30 years in semi-pro football. I don't know the origins of it. I've never bothered asking when I was playing it, so I'm genuinely curious.
This is wow. I've never been asked this question. What I would say is that my last year at Monmouth College, I dislocated a shoulder against Cornell, and we had 4 more games for the rest of the season, and I had broken a foot when I was a sophomore, so they were being nicer to me. I guess what I'll say is nicer to me. When I was a sophomore, they're like, tape that up and play. You're the only we only have to eat it. Right. But when I was a senior, I was going to commission in the military, and my military professor of military science told the coach, "Hey, if he's broken, he doesn't go in the military." And so he was trying to get me to quit,
Mhm.
and I wasn't. I was playing. We're going to the Midwest Central Conference Championship, North versus South versus St. Norbert, and I'm like, I'm playing, and but the coach was being nice and not giving me the ball a lot, because he didn't want to hurt me.
Right.
And I was so mad about this, and so I stewed about it over a couple of years. It's like I had more that I wanted to leave out on the table, and I mean I didn't leave it all on the table.
Right.
And then in 1992, Maurice Horton was starting a team in Springfield called the Springfield Statesmen, and I mean there's all kinds of folks that are in on the team or around the history, whether it be Herb Fuller or no, Herb McMath, whether it be Derek Coleman. There are people that were on that team. Mississippi, I forget what Mississippi's real name is. Smith, Terry Smith, and and those guys were all on that team, and it was awful. We went to we kept having a Maurice would be like, we got 17 games going to New York next week, and it's like, and what are we going to New York in? And I mean, most of the people here didn't have cars, and people were showing up with bicycles that weren't theirs to go to practice. And it was just like, and those games never developed until the end of the season. We all went up to Racine to play the Racine Raiders because they had a team fall out at the end of their league, and they beat us something to like, I don't know. I mean, 77-0. I mean, no, people just stopped playing. They just they changed. Racine was like, don't do the play clock, just let it run. It was that bad. And so that's how it all started. That was antithesis of it all. And then what kept me, I was writing notes earlier today, what kept me coming back is I did like the camaraderie of football, the people every day, and the different types of folks and the craziness that it all came with. But then the will of everybody to try to do their best when it mattered. I mean, you don't see that in life every day, where people will, like, their will say, Tony needs me to do this play. Dan needs me to do this play. What do you have in life that makes you do that? When you're a middle-aged man or a young man, there's nothing really that makes you do that. And then for me, there was a part of being a military officer that I loved about the strategy of the game, and then how to set up the big play to break the spirit of the other team. I mean,
that. Yeah, you were great at that.
I mean, I would develop this thing, and I'd just wait for the other sideline to like lose each other. So go ahead. I'm sorry, Dom. You probably have to go.
No, I didn't have anything. My dad walked in. I was trying to tell him to hang on. He wants to say hi to everybody, but he's going back out. I told him to come back in 5. He's anxious to get in here and say hi to you guys. He wants to talk to the guys that used to punish me all the time during the spring. So,
but what's tough, and I do want to say this because you're on here, and I'd be remiss to not say it, is that I've never in my coaching career had 2 great quarterbacks exceptionally different in each other. You and Dan coming on when you came and having to like figure out and pick and who's starting, who's not. How do we get the rotation and how do we make everybody happy? That's the first time I would have to make a quarterback and then beg them to stay playing it. And so it was all new to me.
The line had a little to do with that, Chris. I think the offensive line might have had a little to do with people not wanting to continue to play quarterback.
Some rough years in there, Brent.
And I felt bad for him.
I just wanted Dom to know that I was so happy when the Stallions started and part of our team started another team. Yeah. And I told everybody, it's like going, do you know, this means an extra home game every season because people were mad when the Stallions and Outlaws grew out. And I was like, don't be, fellas, don't be, because it only makes the competition better. And it only makes the crosstown rivalry stuff. I mean, at Southeast, on its own accord, we weren't giving out any Beanie Babies or anything like this. There wasn't any naked women going to be at the game. We had almost 3,000 people at that game.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a record in Springfield for semi-pro. And it was because the rivalry was real. So that was good.
Well, and you know, to be fair, like I never took any of that personal, Chris. I think hindsight being 2020, you made the right decision for the team at the time. I mean, it's hard pressed to find a guy that, I mean, there's two of them on here and yourself, but like that bled more for the Capital City Outlaws. And I learned a lot from Dan. I think the thing when I think back about that time, I met some great people. I learned a lot as a player. Tried to play safety for a play for Tommy and St. Louis. He got hit on a double reverse for a touchdown pass instantly.
Hey, but you also hit a phenomenal hook and ladder that did not count. That should have counted. And you caught a touchdown pass that should have counted.
I do remember that.
Dom, I think if any safety's first play is a double reverse, they're in a little bit of trouble.
Well, you knew they probably saw me come out and like, we're exposing that guy because he's not my stance. I was like, I didn't know how to stand. I was like,
20 years of semi-pro football, I've seen 3 double reverses. The chance that it was your first play on defense, I mean, worlds collided there. And it was bad. There's no doubt. But I'm telling you, that was a bad break, brother. You could have been a safety for us for 10 years if that wouldn't have happened.
I'll never forget it because when he pitched it the second time, I was like, oh shit. Here it comes. And then of course, but it was a great time for me. And I enjoyed playing. I learned a lot. I got to play some different positions, but the thing I always appreciated was there was never any fluff. I've been in other quarterback competitions and you get fluff, right? Chris always shot us straight. He was basically team comes first. We're going to give the guy who gives us the best shot to win. And I appreciated that. And that's all you want. You want to be able to compete. And then he also gave me a chance to, instead of stand there and hold a clipboard, play other positions, right? Get on the field, play some receiver. I played in the game, Tony, we talked about against Belleville when Dan couldn't make it, play some defensive back safety, which didn't work out too well. But you grow a lot, right? And you learn, and it helped me as a player, right? Because then you're kind of seeing the game from a different light. When you're lining up a receiver and you've never played it, you start to understand a little bit more about the other side of the coin, right? And that helps you as a player understand, hey, this is what the receiver's seeing. I kind of understand, even though I'm not nearly as fast as Jamie or can't jump as high as, all these guys, I understand now what they're seeing, right? And it helps you process the game. And it made me a better person. And I always appreciated the fact that you shot me straight. You were, the first guy to shake my hand after games. We competed against each other so hard, but you always brought the best out of me. And that was something I really appreciated. So
yeah, I was watching that game the other day. It was the green, blue, like the St. Patty's Day. You had a green jersey.
Oh, yeah.
But I hated that Tim Tebow jump sort of pass that you would do. You would make it look like you're going to run, and you'd stop, and you just like jump past it. But damn it! I knew he was going to do it. But I
was lucky more often than not. Let's be real honest. It wasn't a skilled trait.
It's crazy in semi-pro because really the defenses generally have the advantage, right? I mean, it's go kill everybody. It's Jerome Mack. But when there's 35 in trap, those kind of plays. There's those 37 X out followed by the screen. There's those plays that you can take advantage of. Go kill everybody, and that was one of them, right? And in traps was one of them. And Nick was very good at that too. Chris was very good at that. Hey, I've seen enough semi-pro. I've seen enough semi-pro to know these guys are coming. They are coming. They're going to come so hard. If we can make them take a half a step the wrong way, we're going to knock their head off. Or those linebackers are coming. If we can make them think for a second that you're trying to break it up the middle and you can pop up and hit that tight end. There's going to be nobody within 10 feet. You know, those were the fun. Defense always had the advantage, especially in the AFL, no cut blocking.
Yeah.
But it was fun to see those plays work. That was fun.
I can still hear Chris yelling "sweep" on when we were in the fake sweep fullback
Yeah,
screen. He's every
Yes.
that damn fullback screen.
You told the whole second string. Everybody on the bench had to yell "sweep" the minute we went. I forgot about that.
Oh my God. I can't believe you either. And,
So
and then
good.
I also going to say my favorite, and I think it was a 33 end trap. George Wilson in Peoria. We gave him this. We hit that end trap. He stepped to the right, came back left. We gave him the ball, and then he put it out in his two hands. Do you remember this, Tony? And he put it out in front of a defensive player and just like put it over his head. He's like,
Oh
"What?"
yeah,
And that guy fell down. I mean, I've never seen anything
That
like this in my life.
that was the game. He showed up, and I remember he showed up, and we were like, "This guy wants to play running back. Like, who the hell is this guy? He just all of a sudden wants to play running back." And then we were like, "Oh, he can play running back. Okay, that's fine. Like, let's keep giving him the ball."
We had him stuck on half of the field playing corner,
Yeah,
and he was a stud there too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, he was.
So-
I mean, he
oh
was
my God.
up all by himself. I mean,
What a swole
that the
corner
game-
too. Jeez, Pete, he's a big
Yeah.
boy.
Yeah.
This was it. This was up in Peoria, right? Was that the game where we all saw and maybe were a part of the most amazing play that has maybe never been duplicated in semi-pro football, when the snapper, who was Pete Smizer, got
Oh,
a
yes.
touchdown? I'm telling you, if you can find another one on film, you know what? I'll pay you
I
$500.
completely forgot about that.
Pete Smizer was the snapper on a field goal attempt and scored a touchdown. It was
Yeah.
amazing. The block happened behind the line of scrimmage,
Got blocked.
right?
Yeah,
And it was live. You tell me and somehow Pete's a tight end, falls into Pete's hands because he was turned around,
right.
looking at it. He heard the sound, and then we just kind of rugby scrum this thing into the end
Yeah.
zone.
it was a run. It just people kept pushing him. He kept getting his knees up high, and he refused to go down. Oh my God.
That
And
That's
game.
a total Pete
that-
touchdown.
You bring that game up to my father. He's still to this day is pissed off about that game because we got absolutely screwed in Peoria. They caught a touchdown pass over Craig Rolfe out of bounds, a full yard out of bounds that they called a touchdown.
Oh.
And then Carlos Battle reached the ball over the goal line and it fumbled, and they called it a fumble. And it was a clear touchdown. And we got that was my first eye-opening experience to the semi-pro ref. And like, oh, okay, here's like it's a homer situation everywhere you go.
There was a lot of those in Quincy.
I mean, to be
Yeah.
fair, I mean, they the guys who would take those games outside of Buddy Dixon, right? Who were not the best, but we made them think about 3 sets of rules, because some of it was high school, some of it was pro, some of it was this. That doesn't excuse a lot of it. It doesn't excuse the blatant hometown stuff.
Yeah.
But I remember we'd get so mad about the 2 feet, the 1 foot, the when the clock would change to the 2 minutes and everything, and that I would have hated to ref those games.
Right. You were
Well, then
there
you had
in
to listen
08.
to us.
Yeah.
Remember in 08 when we were losing to we were in Quincy, we were losing by 3 scores with like 5 minutes left in the game, and I kept telling Pickett, put in Brent, because I was getting killed on it. You remember that? I know you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
You came in, we were down by 3 scores, and Pickett's like, "You guys got any heart? You gonna fight back?" And we ended up scoring twice, got the ball back with like 30 seconds left, and the last play of the game, we scored a touchdown. We went for 2 to win the game, and I dropped back. I had like 10 seconds, if you remember it, and I stepped up. Brent kicked this guy out right. I stepped up just off Brent's ass, basically, and threw a pass in the right corner to Tony Carey, and he caught it, and you can see it on film. He catches it, and he's completely in bounds in the game, and they're like, incomplete. But, brutal.
Yeah.
I love it.
They wanted me to earn it. Tumbleson did too. I mean, I don't blame him at all. Hey, Chris, I got to ask you this, and it might be a little bit turn a little both ways, but it's old days stuff. We talked about what you brought to Springfield, and you remember the old days when we were the only team outside of Chicago, or the Chicago area, a couple Indiana teams. When that league came down, to the central Illinois area, right? And I know there was a lot of people who maybe weren't happy about that, but you and I both remember playing in the system the way it was. And I think there's 25 teams that have spawned from that. But talk a little bit about that, because there was no football here in between Chicago and St. Louis ever. And now there's 20 teams that still play and 30 that have come and gone.
And you first off, you have to give it out to gosh dang it, I can't believe I'm going to make this mistake. Stacy Moore. Yeah. Stacy Moore got me into the game. He was the originator of Springfield Bucks. And I do believe he should be in the Hall of Fame someday, for sure. Management styles and money and having a place to put equipment, those things get in the way of your love and passion. And we were the only team in Central Illinois, and we had players from Decatur, Litchfield, Jacksonville, Champaign. We had all these players on this
Bloomington,
team because that's right, because Bloomington, because it was the only team in Central Illinois. And we would have to, every away game was an away game. It was Gary, Indiana. It was Milwaukee. It was Chicago. Jesus. It was Ohio.
Lake County,
Lake County Eagles and Vikings. And it was just like, who's going to show up today? Because this is like, you're going to be gone for like 20 hours for this game. And you would just like be scrambling for players to finish this up. And then you go up there and our Springfield guys started kicking ass. They started doing great work. I was surprised. I mean, when Marcus Anderson, one of the most amazing running backs of all time, God rest his soul, he could not be stopped. I mean, I would take rookie defensive linemen that would show up, and I'm like going, you can come out and play on the team if you can block this 5'10", 185-pound man. And he would light them up. Ant got lit up. Big got lit up by this 5'10" dude. And so we started to we'd start to get stuff going. And then me, Craig Witz, Kenny Miles, Mike Wiggins, what's the guy in Champaign? We're like, hey, I know I only have you for a year or two on this team. You'll start your own team, and you'll start your own team, so that we would have McCormick down in St. Clair County. We Effingham, Litchfield. I mean, all those things all grew out of that, but they played with us first. Stallions, they played with us first, and then they saw something that they think they could replicate, and it only made us better. And then, and I find that incredible. I mean, I really enjoyed the time. I mean, I have more stories than I could get into for today. I will save it for another day about going to Joliet Correctional, going to Gary, Indiana, and our bus breaking down in Hanson, Chicago. I mean, it is full of amazing little stories of the old days, but also, a girl's hitting on me with Outlaws and end up making out with Pat Sweska because she thought it.
So did you think you were the same person? Did they?
I remember that.
I think that.
I don't know that story. That's fantastic.
That sounds about right.
I can say this, Chris. This is just part one. You're definitely more episodes.
I will say this, Chris, and I don't mean that. I don't mean this as a knock. I don't mean this as a negative. I could listen to you tell me the same story 5 times in a row and never get tired of it. Like, honestly, like I was talking to Dan about this, and I know Brent and I have talked about it a little bit too. I love a Chris Lawson story. I mean, I've heard the story about your governor falling out in your car 100 times, and it never ceases to crack me up. Like, it's just like it's, but that's 30 years of the game.
In the early years, I've got to tell you this. In the early years, Chris didn't have that many football stories. And the night that I was in that car and his leveler fell out of his car, he told the best Chris Lawson growing up stories. That I mean, like,
I love it. I love
the
the
years he didn't
stories.
have enough football stories, but the Chris Lawson growing up stories were amazing. There were 6 of us packed into a car that was supposed to hold 4. That's all part of that Hanson Field story.
I love the stories. I love the stories of Chris talking about his dad beating the shit out of Tommy Akers. That stuff cracks. That stuff used to crack me up.
Everybody can relate to that. Nobody has not wanted to beat the shit out of Tommy Akers.
That's true.
I got the shit beat out of me by Tommy Akers' defenses a lot, but
but again, I think that's kind of the underlying theme of this episode, and this really the whole podcast in general is just the stories from semi-pro football are, and like you said at the beginning of this podcast, Chris, some of them you honestly don't believe it until you physically see it with your own eyes, and you're like, that's exactly what he was talking about. Now I believe it. Now it's 100% accurate.
Don't you guys all find yourself telling a story that you were there for and is 100% true? And you're telling it to people, and like outside of this circle of people, and you're like, it sounds, you've all heard people who tell stories that aren't true. It sounds so freaking crazy that they think it's not true.
Yeah.
But you were there. 100%. I mean, I've got 5 dozen of them.
I remember hearing stories from Chris, and I'm not going to name a name, but I remember hearing stories from Chris about an individual who would duct tape their hands and then would show videotape of themselves, and I didn't believe it until I actually met that person. And I was like, oh,
sending it off to NFL, sending it to NFL teams.
Let me finish the back part of this. I won't say no names either.
Yeah,
but I will say, he was mad that I wouldn't videotape the games and then for the players to scrutinize. And so he's like, well, I guess coach doesn't have any VHS tapes. So I'm just going to give him my VHS tapes, and I'm going to have my girl videotape the game so he can have it and see how amazing I am as a football player. And then so I look at it. I mean, Alex wasn't there to videotape it. I'm watching his tape, and it runs out at the end of the game. It fizzles out, and at the end of that game, he's having sex with his girlfriend.
Oh, no.
He taped over it.
Do I know this guy? Is this guy somebody?
You might know. We'll tell you the name off air. You might know the name off air, Dom. Yeah. We got to be careful with names, though.
I hear you. Yeah. The story that I always think about that people think is unbelievable and isn't true is Brent catching a touchdown pass and handing me the ball. I mean, everybody I tell that story to that knows Brent. Like, there's no way he caught that.
Now he caught it off the turf. I mean,
that was Jacksonville. Jacksonville was the layout.
He had to stretch out for it.
No, this one was pretty easy, but the Jacksonville one, I mean, I swear, and again, another story, but that Jacksonville one, Dan will attest. I laid out so far. I mean, I
don't remember this one.
From here to 8 feet away, and when I looked over my shoulder, the ref was already ready. I mean, he was so ready for the incomplete that he just went like this. I mean, that is true.
I don't remember that.
You weren't there because there's a picture of me, Cody, and Dave there.
Oh, you know why I wasn't there? You know why I wasn't there? Because I graduated college, Brent. That's why I wasn't
there. You go.
I mean, priorities,
so hey, technically, I was in town. I would have been in town.
I handed that ball to Dom a week after my son was born.
And let's be on the record. Who gave you Brock's name?
Yeah, that's fair.
What?
Fair.
What?
We were playing NCAA football and we were talking names, and I was like, dude, Brock Bordenkircher would be so sick.
That's cool.
He was like, yeah, it would be. And that was, it was great.
Dom did live for me briefly. My wife hated it. It was so funny because even I was new to this. And so like one year, we're not even having the kid yet, but all of a sudden we got to carve pumpkins. That's apparently that's what you do when you're getting ready to have a baby. You just do shit like that. And Salvo's living in one bedroom. He's got this girlfriend who was
my dog too.
Attractive, tall, young blonde lady who he called Hulkster all the time because she was taller than him. I mean, she was so good looking too. And he's like, "What's up, Hulkster?" Because she was a little taller.
You called her that too.
Because you're paying rent. But right. Anyway, so we get these pumpkins. We're all going to carve them. And Salvo sits down at the table and grabs one and a knife. And he carves a 17 into the front of a pumpkin that sat on our porch. that whole Halloween. That true story.
Dude, that's not wrong. That was a fun time. Don Vito too, man. Don Vito was my homie. My God, did I love that dog.
You know who lived in that bedroom briefly before Dom was Dave Robertson for about a week. And then Dom lived there for a while, and then I needed the rent money.
You needed the money. What I do got to ask Chris, because we talked a little bit about our immaturity, and we mentioned last week. Dom mentioned the yard incident at your house. How annoyed were you with us as just immature jackasses trying to play football for you? Like, we had to have driven you out. Like, you had to have gone home and just pounded bottles of Crown. It just like, what the hell am I doing with these guys? Like, how nuts did we make you? Be honest.
So I will put this in terms that I would have to deal with. First off, I love coaches' terms for stuff like this. So like jackassery, these or stop monkey dicking around. I mean, it's the things that you football players, and so I love it for that thing. And then and so the time when we played the Stallions and Chad Mileham flipped off the whole balcony,
the double,
the world. I mean, literally the world.
Then the paper.
Yeah.
So my boss, I was the adjutant general for Illinois, and it goes, outlaw this circus, and sports page. And I and my boss tells me, he goes, is this really worth it? Is it really worth it? That this is what happens. And I told myself secretly, I mean, I gave him I put my eyes down. I said, I know. But inside of myself, I said, it absolutely is. I mean, like the most ink they've ever spent on semi-pro football.
Yeah, they did cover that a lot.
I mean, it was just like, it has its own life. It has its own presence. It just has to hit the right buttons. But it was always great. Kept me young. I feel like I'm young now as well about, having discussions with players like, so, I mean, I'm not lying about these stories. It's like, so it's a, you have a pussy discharge. You're worried.
Oh,
like, okay, it could be a couple things, bro. And it's like, I mean, that's being a coach,
you were literally like a United Way counselor, but it cost you like $200,000 over your lifetime because you had to have a football team.
Oh God.
Literally, it's like, I swear, I said this at my induction speech, but it did happen. I mean, there were guys who came to us who didn't have a clue how to talk to people, how to look, how to even feel like a real person. And Chris, like I said, some military opportunities, some other ones. But I mean, every weekend we played the game, but there was that moment to try to make them better, to try to make them do something for somebody else, to try to make them, sell out for something that wasn't selfish. That was huge. I mean, and even for me, that was huge. I didn't have anybody in my life that made me go have accountability. I was 23 years old, bartending, single, living in an apartment, accountability to other people. And then also trying to make yourself better every week. People all get it somewhere, I guess. But I mean, I got it from Chris. And I think we all then started to get it from each other. And that's a big deal, man. Young men need that. And laugh at semi-pro all you want. Changed my life.
Oh, no doubt. When people like knock it or anything, they don't know it. They see their own little window into it. They never experienced it, or they never like I said before, they never bought into that family atmosphere where it's like Dom alluded to too. It's everybody caring for everybody else, and that's what made us, honestly. I mean, I know Dom was a part of the Outlaws for a little bit, but didn't play for the Outlaws for a long time. But that's what made us who we were, and
Yeah.
and that's what made it important and special to wear the jersey on our back and to be able to play the game for each other. It was, I mean, honestly, again, like I said, it was some of the best times of my life in the game.
And you have to realize too, on the AFL forum and those things. I mean, you guys were all lynched. You were all the Outlaw guys. They were I mean, it grew to not just a team, but to a league of familiarity and a family. And I don't know how to explain it. That I was happy when the Midwest Football League collapsed after we left it, and we joined a little known or understood AFL league and made it as big as it was. And I mean, it was still going through 2018. That I know
now.
It's still going now. Yeah.
It's still going now.
Central Plains States. That's right.
Like a spinoff.
It's not right. It's not the AFL.
You'll remember,
right,
Chris.
Right.
I was not happy. I mean, I love the 11-man game, but you know what? What's right's right, and what's wrong is wrong. And we left that league for the right reason. I'm serious. There was a pointed reason that people wanted us out of it. It was not based upon reality, and they were going to forfeit us 3 games. And I don't fault you for a bit. And honestly, in a backwards way, it gave me a national championship, so I can't complain. But what's right's right. And we were always that way. I mean, honestly, we love the forums. Someday they'll hand out an award for the best, the best presence on the forum all time, and it'll be down to me and Dom if we get to include all of our.
It would. And Jim Luck. Jim
Luck.
For the random updates about his carburetor or whatever's going on.
Please.
If I can get him a camera in his garage that'll follow him around while he's working on his Volkswagen, we could probably get him on here.
I just want the archives. The fact that he has said I have them on a hard drive tells me we need to get them. I want to read them. I want to make a book of them and read them and entertain myself for years.
I want to do the same thing after I edit them first. So
no,
I can't.
No editing.
It took me like, I don't know, 3 times to watch you guys post that you were just like changing people's names with Chuck Norris. I mean,
it started with the Tony Schiffman, Jeff Saturday post that was amazing, dude.
Yeah.
I was talking about how Tony was the greatest center who ever lived.
All the time. It's like, oh my God.
Those were good times. Those were great times.
I gotta ask Chris, because Tony talked about it and you looked like you were confused when he talked about it. But do you remember waking up one morning and all of your neighbors' lawn ornaments were in your driveway?
And wasn't there a penis spray painted on?
That was Dan and I. That was Dan and I.
No,
we did it in the yard.
It was like after a weekend, and then it's like going, oh my God. Luckily for me, my neighbors, but I was like, that penis take a bit to take out. I mean, I'm gonna have to call my guy to cut my grass real low to get rid of it. And what holiday? It wasn't Christmas. It was not Christmas. It was like
Labor Day, maybe, or something.
Labor Day, 4th of July is what it was. It was 4th of July. I'm like, what the fuck? And luckily, sorry.
You can curse. You can curse. You're okay.
Forward lateral, you're good. You got it.
Yeah. I was just like, I don't even know where these belong. I don't remember. So I can't put them back. And
there was a lot. I mean, in your defense, like it was incredible how many like lawn gnomes and those globes people had in your neighborhood.
It's a nice neighborhood.
It was.
Yeah.
People do some landscaping in nice neighborhoods. I just remember the climb of the hill up to his house when he lived there, man. It was like the driveway was like 45 degrees.
It was.
That was nice, man. I mean, he tried that in my shitty neighborhood out in Chatham at the time. Scaled my fence, tried to come in the window.
I did try.
For whatever reason, me and Tiffany were in the other bedroom that night, and like it got heated fast.
I forgot about that. Oh my God. Yeah. And then I had to sell that house right away. I got divorced and I had like 5 bedrooms. I'm like going, if I keep this house much longer, I'd have it's all filled with football players.
Oh yeah.
That's the famous house where the Four Seasons promo was shot in the basement. Where
Yes, that's
the
right.
Tommy Akers
Oh.
voiceover
Tony
before Tony came back, before Businger came back. I mean, you would have talked. There was like me and Helton and
Aubrey.
a bunch of guys in Aubrey, and a bunch
Aubrey
of guys
Collins.
didn't play that much, and it was
Aubrey.
kind of scary. It was scary for a little while what the Stallions were probably going to do to us.
Aubrey hit me so hard when we played at Southeast that year in 09. I literally, it was late in the game. It was when we were going back and forth, and I took off, and I was like, worst decision. I'm going to lower my shoulder and try and at least have some face here with my teammates. And I lowered my shoulder going to the sideline. He hit me. I helicoptered like 3 times, and I landed in like the sand pit for the track and field. I mean, it just smacked me.
Yeah, that was a horseshoe pit.
Yeah.
Dude,
So volleyball.
Me.
That's right. Yeah.
I remember after the game, my grandpa was like, "You probably should have got out of bounds before that hit, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah, probably. Thank you for that."
I know there's bleachers out there. I did that once.
Oh, yeah. I lived it all.
I got to tell you, tough moments is, when we did the Stallion Outlaw split, and Dan, Tony, everybody went to the Stallions. And so I'm going to tell you, I was in a deep, dark, lonely place with me and Aubrey. Me and Aubrey, he was going to be my quarterback because Dan was with us. And I was like, okay, Aubrey, you've got to man up. Let's go. We started working fast to get them all set up. And then we got Dan and Tony back a couple weeks later. But now Aubrey's feelings are hurt. He was supposed to be our guy.
Yeah.
And Dan came back. And so I'll never forget that season. Aubrey said he was going to punt the ball, and he was never our punter. And he goes to punt the ball, and he just the ball got hiked to him, and he ran it for a touchdown.
Yeah,
he did not
took off,
kicking it off.
Yeah.
I remember that.
This ball, hook or crook, I'm getting this ball, and I'm going to score a touchdown, and he did. But I mean, it's stuff like that.
He came. I remember when he came out the year before, and we were like, who is this dude? Where do we? And I think that first season he played, I think he caught a touchdown, rushed for a touchdown, threw a touchdown, had a pick six, had a punt return, he scored every way possible, and he had no it was literally we'd get in the huddle and Dan would say, Aubrey, you play tight end this play. Aubrey, you play receiver this play. Aubrey, you play running back this play. Yeah, and he would just did everything.
I was going to think Antoine Randall. Same thing. He's
a
utility player. Baseball has utility players,
and he's another one. He's another one whose his best position was probably on defense. He was probably a better linebacker than anything else, and he just did everything.
Yeah,
I just remember he used to show up in slippers to games. He had those.
Yes,
Briscoe. Yeah, they had those dog stuffed animal slipper things. Yeah. I was like, man, I need to get some of those.
Oh my God. I don't want to waste. I don't want to tell all the stories on this first time we do this, but in the old Bucks days in Sherman, Illinois, the subways right there in that strip mall. And so the girls in the subway, white girls from Sherman are back there smoking cigarettes. And so our guy, Mississippi, Terry Smith, would pop his trunk, put some M to me, some old school in between the sheets,
oil type stuff, man.
Yeah. And he would take all of his clothes off, and he would be down to a bikini short
leopard skin thong.
That was leopard skin bikini short,
is.
And he would start to put baby oil on him. And he's like, "Oh, hey, baby, well, you know what?" And everybody's lined up to do calisthenics, and we would go, "Mississippi, get your ass over here." He's like, "I'm coming, coach. I'm coming." And he had nothing on, but it was just those girls in Sherman love that every Saturday. Love that. Oh my God!
Of course, it was leopard skin. I knew that.
It was leopard.
All the Stallions guys used to wear that shit too in the locker room. I'd be like, "What are you guys doing, man?" They made fun of me because I was wearing Abercrombie, but
yeah.
was like the pre-Under Armour era where, you know, it was wool and it was like,
Holy moly.
Oh my God. I remember when we were at the Casino Bowl in Vegas, Brent and I, and Brent's got to play. I'm just coaching. And so Brent comes up one night and he's like, "Hey, you got some compression pants, shorts I could wear?" I was like, "You mean like underwear?" And he's like, "Yeah, the compression ones." I'm like, I'm not playing. I don't wear those. So it's like,
Yeah, I packed them.
like, I think I asked to borrow, and Chris is like, if I had any, you could keep them. I'll tell you that right now. But yeah, I mean, I played that game in cotton briefs.
Oh,
my
terrible.
God. It's Vegas, man. Oh, it was brutal. I didn't pack well, you know.
You
Wear a
I didn't
leather
pack
helmet
well.
too, or what? Jeez.
I mean, it was terrible. I mean, well, listen, man, they did not have Under Armour when I came through high school and college, you guys. Understand what it was like. Chris knows back in the day, that swamp ass was so real.
yeah. Hey, listen, the assless jock was
Oh,
like
yeah.
the thing that everybody wore back then.
Yep.
And you knew then, don't lie to me, you had acne on your butt. Everybody did. Because they didn't have ass in the back of those pants.
Nothing
or
but
the
sweat.
shorts. So yeah.
Like, we come from an era where hip pads were not optional. Like, you had to wear the hip pad. I mean,
Yeah.
dude,
That was my senior year. Yeah, I remember.
there was nothing.
Tony and I aren't that far behind. We had to wear hip pads.
No, we had to wear hip. I mean, we had. I mean, I
It seemed
remember
like a long time back then. It seemed like a wide gap.
it was. I mean,
I mean, it was. Yeah, to be fair, but
it was. You were Brent. We talked about this last week. You were 35 when we were all 23, but in reality, we found out last week you were like 28 when we were all 23.
It's like
Tony,
when you're
we
in high
had wrist
school.
coaches. And
When
Brent's
you're in high
we
school
had
dating an eighth
tablets.
grader,
Yeah.
it's not cool. You know, in high school dating an eighth grader, not cool. But when you get married 6 years apart, no problem.
Yeah.
We need Gaskins on here so that I have somebody like Chris. Chris played games when we got short. Chris played.
Hey, Chris played a game with us, with me.
Yeah.
Right.
In Macomb.
In Macomb.
The Jersey game where we had to find white jerseys.
Yep.
And people wearing like
that was the championship game.
Cordell Stewart
X-Bombers.
There's someone's got a picture of that somewhere where we are all wearing different, like I'm wearing a blank white jersey. Businger's wearing a Shane Conlon jersey.
What was that skinny dude that you guys
Chris
went
Lawson.
No.
Who? No.
My friend?
He was a
Kanan.
receiver. Say it again.
Kanan Reineberger.
Yes, Kanan. Kanan was wearing a Cordell Stewart.
Yep. And we won.
Wow.
And we won the championship that day.
Doug Reeder's wearing his Carlinville High School jersey.
Yeah.
Chris Schlowski are wearing route jerseys.
And
Like,
I was wearing Herb Fullerton's jersey.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I was wearing Herb.
hope you kept
Hey,
that one.
hey, Chris,
That's a collector's item.
Hey,
how'd that end up working out
Brown
for you,
told
Chris? Did that work out okay for you, buddy?
that was. Hey, do you Brent or Chris? Do you remember that game? That was very similar to the Pete Smizer situation. The week before, we had tryouts for 11 man, and it signed Jason Howard.
Yes.
And this was before, like, the half of the rules in the NFL we implemented, the other half were because of us. And so we showed up for this championship game, and Jason Howard's there, and he had played for another team. And we were like, "Hey man, you're on our team now. Come play for us." And scored 3 touchdowns, and we won 24-0 in the championship game. And we were just like, "What? There's nothing wrong with it."
Like a hurricane.
Yes.
Coming in. And
they
then
called it.
I got that picture of us. I have it somewhere, and I was going to make a poster of it, and I'm like, "Oh, no, there's no way."
If you have that picture, I need to see that picture.
I will find it.
I gave the block with the cup was the championship.
Yeah.
And me, Troy Helton, Willie Hedden, and Dave Mull, for whatever reason, took it back to my house in Jacksonville and drank a lot that night.
The year we won it in two-parter here. The year we won it in 2007, I'm pretty sure we all broke it that night because Pat Schweska fell into a bush. He fell into a bush at Four Seasons. And then Chris, you'll have to ask your brother. I gave Alex a giant bin full of pictures from Outlaws games that my father took. 20 years ago now. You have to ask him if he still has those, because I would pay money to go through those pictures.
I know I have a couple bags of them.
Okay.
They're in a U-Haul that I haven't unpacked yet, but I know I have a couple bags of them. You won't like it because you're a little chunky.
I know. I know I was.
He was still
That was
too
before he
small to
was-
be a center.
I still was too
Sorry.
small. Right. I still
Yes,
I
plus.
still was too small to be a center, but oh yeah, I remember.
He was percusizing after that. And
I was.
slimmed down a little bit.
I did.
We all went through those phases.
We did.
It's all right.
We did.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Yeah.
I'm probably so.
No, we're
We're signing off. Hey, Chris, thank you for everything you
Yeah.
did for semi-pro, and
Um,
I wouldn't
thank-
be where I am if it wasn't for you starting everything in Springfield. Honestly, I mean, it opened so many doors for me. I know it opened doors for these guys, and we appreciate it and
no,
appreciate
yeah.
all the games, stories, and everything. And you got to come back, man.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you. Guys.
we gotta have you back. Chris, I can't probably gonna get choked up, but man, I love you, man. I'm so glad to see you healthy. This is awesome.
Yes.
I can't wait to do it again. So I appreciate you.
Thank you, Chris, for everything you did for me. I mean, you did a lot. Thank you, man.
Very glad to see you healthy.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, guys. Hey, I
All right,
love
Thanks,
you guys.
Coach. Love
See
you.
you guys
All
soon. Thanks,
See you
guys.
guys. Bye-bye.